Our wedding was everything I had ever dreamed of. The laughter of family, the shimmer of gold lights, her smile beneath the veil. It all felt like the beginning of something beautiful. I believed love would fill our home, that the nights would be warm and full of connection. But I was wrong. Every night after the wedding, she would turn away. The first time, she said she was tired. The second night, she said she had a headache. By the end of the first week, excuses became her nightly ritual, as if she had rehearsed them all. I tried to understand. Maybe she needed time to adjust. Maybe she was nervous. So I waited, but waiting turned into wondering, and wondering slowly turned into pain. Some nights, she would lie beside me scrolling on her phone, the cold glow of the screen reflecting off her face while I lay there, pretending it didn't hurt. I reached out once, gently touching her shoulder, and she pulled away like my touch burned her. "Please," I whispered one night. "We've been married for weeks. What's wrong?" She didn't even look at me. "Nothing's wrong. I'm just not in the mood." The word mood echoed in my chest like an insult. Days passed. Weeks followed. The silence between us grew heavier than walls. I began to feel like a stranger in my own marriage, an outsider looking in through glass at the woman I was supposed to share everything with. By the 30th night, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Emma," I said quietly, "we've been married a month. You haven't touched me once. Tell me what's going on." She finally turned toward me, her face calm, too calm. Her eyes, cold as winter, locked onto mine. "My body, my choice," she said sharply. "You have no right to demand anything from me." It wasn't anger that hit me then, it was disbelief. Because in that single sentence, she didn't just deny intimacy. She denied love, respect, partnership. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, realizing I wasn't married to a partner. I was chained to someone who didn't even see me as a human being with feelings. And in that silence, I made my choice. I would go to court, not to fight for her affection, but to free myself from the cage she had built around my heart. I didn't know then that this choice would uncover a web of betrayal, deceit, and greed that ran far deeper than I ever imagined. The courthouse smelled of old paper, ink, and silent tension, the kind of place where dreams come to die quietly. I walked in wearing the same suit I had worn at my wedding. The irony wasn't lost on me. That day, it had symbolized the beginning of forever. Today, it marked the end. Emma arrived 20 minutes late, wearing a designer suit and a smug smile. She didn't even glance at me. When the judge called our case, she stepped forward with perfect confidence, the kind that only comes from believing the world bends to your will. When asked why I had filed for dissolution so soon after our marriage, she laughed softly. "He's impatient, Your Honor. He doesn't understand boundaries. I just needed time to feel ready. But he's controlling." Her tone dripped with fake fragility, as though she were the victim. I stood quietly listening. When my turn came, I stepped forward and spoke calmly. "Your Honor, I entered this marriage in good faith. For 30 nights, I was denied not only intimacy but affection, respect, and basic companionship. When I asked my wife what was wrong, she said, and I quote, 'My body, my choice. You have no right.'" A murmur spread through the courtroom. The judge frowned slightly. "But this isn't just about physical closeness," I continued. "It's about intent. Because I've come to believe she never planned to be a wife at all." For the first time, Emma's smile faltered. I pulled a folder from my lawyer's briefcase and handed it to the bailiff. "These are messages between my wife and her friends," I said. In them, she bragged about marrying me for financial security, not love. Her head snapped toward me, eyes wide. "That's not true." But as the bailiff handed the judge the papers, her voice started to tremble. The judge adjusted his glasses, reading aloud one of the messages. "Don't worry, girls. I didn't marry him for love. Once I get access to his accounts, I'll keep him on a leash. A month of distance will make him desperate." Gasps filled the courtroom. Even her lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Emma tried to speak, but the judge silenced her with a wave. "We'll review these messages properly. For now, the evidence stands." And at that moment, for the first time since our wedding, she looked afraid. The next hearing day, the courtroom was packed. Reporters, family members, and curious onlookers had filled the benches. Word had spread about the case of the Cole bride. Word had spread about the case of the Cole bride. The judge began by reading more excerpts from the messages. He's so naive. I'll keep him guessing for a few weeks. By then, he'll trust me enough to let me manage his money. She had written those words. The same hands that once held mine had typed those sentences like venom. When asked to explain, Emma stood trembling. Those were private jokes, she stammered. I was just venting. He's twisting everything. But her own words betrayed her. The judge's tone was sharp. Mrs. Wallace, this court does not consider conspiring to deceive your spouse a joke. Her face drained of color. My lawyer then submitted bank transaction records showing that, during our short marriage, she had transferred small amounts from our joint account to a separate one under her mother's name. Each piece of evidence was another nail in the coffin of her lies. She stood frozen, eyes glassy, hands trembling. I didn't gloat. I didn't even look at her, because I had already mourned this marriage weeks ago. But the judge wasn't done yet. He leaned forward and said, Mr. Wallace, you mentioned there's additional documentation relevant to this case? I nodded. Yes, Your Honor. The marriage contract addendum. I just felt free. She had built a trap for me. But in the end, she was the one who fell into it. Months passed. Life moved on quietly. I threw myself into work, into rebuilding the peace she had shattered, until one evening, fate placed her in front of me again. It was at a small restaurant downtown. I was having dinner with a client when I noticed her, sitting alone in a corner booth, hair unkempt, eyes tired. When she saw me, her lips trembled. She stood up and walked toward my table. Please, she said softly, can I talk to you? Just for a minute? I excused myself from the table and followed her outside. Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke. I've lost everything, she whispered. My family won't talk to me. My friends, they vanished. At work, no one even looks at me. I thought I was being strong, independent. I thought I was proving something. But I ruined everything. I ruined us. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I once loved, the one I thought existed behind all the lies. But I also remembered every cold night, every cruel word, every moment she had chosen greed over love. She reached for my hand. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, she said, but please, can we start over? I can be better. I pulled my hand back gently. You once told me, I said quietly, that your body was your choice and I had no right. You were right then and you're right now. Your choices are yours, and so are their consequences. Her tears fell freely. Please don't leave me like this. But I already had, long before that night. I looked at her one last time and said, you made your choices, Emma, and life made its own in return. Then I turned and walked away. Behind me, I could hear her sobbing, not for me, but for everything she had lost. It's been over a year since the divorce. My life is quieter now, simpler, and far happier than it ever was. Sometimes I think about how easily I could have fallen into her trap, how 1 month of patience nearly turned into a lifetime of misery. She wanted control. She wanted wealth without effort, love without giving, comfort without commitment. But she forgot one truth. Manipulation may give short-term power, but always ends in self-destruction. Today, she lives alone in a small apartment on the edge of town. The woman who once dressed in designer clothes now shops in thrift stores. And me? I found peace, and someone who understands that love is built on respect, not control. When people ask me about my marriage, I don't speak of revenge. I speak of lessons. Because in the end, what she taught me was priceless. That dignity is worth more than any illusion of love. That sometimes walking away is the greatest victory. And that when truth stands in the light, deceit always burns to ashes. Weeks after that final encounter, I received an envelope at my office. Inside was a handwritten letter from her. I used to think love was about winning, about having control. But when I lost you, I realized love was about giving. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope someday you remember the woman I could have been. I folded the letter carefully, place it in a drawer, and never open again. Because some stories don't need second chapters. They need closure. She denied me love, trust, and intimacy, and in return, life denied her the very things she valued most. Comfort, reputation, and control. Every action comes with a shadow. Every lie finds its echo. And sometimes the greatest justice doesn't come from a judge's gavel. It comes from life itself. So when I look back, I don't feel anger. I feel gratitude. Because her betrayal taught me the true me, aining of love, and the priceless peace that comes from letting go. If you've ever given your all to someone who used you, remember this. You are not weak for loving honestly. They are weak for lying to someone who did. Don't chase closure. Let truth do the work. Because in time, every betrayal finds its own punishment, and every honest heart finds peace. Tell us what you think in the comments below.